Well, naturally, I think the safety measures, the security measures in regards to North Korea is one of the hottest topics that they'll be getting into. Obviously, we all know that even though United States might be making the biggest noise, it is China who has the card to really control North Korea. And obviously, from that point of view, considering the geopolitical issues involved in this region, it is crucial that we move forward to at least trying to attain some kind of better security in regards to North Korea, because obviously we know that they're getting quite agitated in their pressure from the United States, and for that reason, I think this meeting could lead to something that is quite fruitful.
Now, China has said that a political solution to the tensions on the Korean Peninsula are in the interests of China as well as Japan and the Republic of Korea. What is your take on South Korea and Japan's position when it comes to China and Russia's recent move to have the UN drop sanctions against the DPRK?
That's a very tricky and a good question, I think, because the fact of the matter is the biggest aggression that Japan is feeling is actually from China. Of course, North Korea may be a problem as when they throw missiles over our head, but we know that they're not as a big a threat as, for example, China. But at the same time, we have to make a coalition move in order to sustain, our partnership with China and Korea, and in order to fight off the aggression that are reappearing in North Korea. So this is a bit of a very, very delicate move that has to be done. But at the same time, we know that unless we get a cooperation from China, the problem in North Korea will not be solved. Let's face it, 85% of trade is with China for North Korea. So whatever the Americans might be saying or putting pressure on, they will not budge. But if the Chinese authorities do make some kind of a move, obviously the North Koreans will budge. So this is a bit of a very tricky, situation for countries like Japan, where the coalition on the security measures is by far the strongest with the United States. So it is a very much of a tricky move, but at the same time, I think we have to understand that we have to try to sustain the stability in the area to basically shun the aggression of North Korea down.
Let's switch now to trade. And the trade tensions between China and the United States, of course, have been dominating headlines for quite some time. But there is another trade war, isn't there, between Japan and South Korea?
Absolutely. I think, in this meeting, they'll be talking about FTA and RCEP and all these kind of, free trade talks. But in reality, I think the biggest focal point of this meeting is the meeting with Mr. Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, and Mr. Moon Jae-il, the President of South Korea. And as you just noted, there's been a very fierce trade war that's going on between South Korea and Japan. When you look at a statistic that came out last week, in November, the Japanese export to Korea has dropped by 17% year on year. On the other hand, Koreans traveling to Japan had dropped by 65% year on year. So you can see that it's not only on the actual economic side, but on the emotional side to the public as well. And this is likely to drag on for some time. I'm not saying this because I'm Japanese, but this extremely unreasonable and violation of international law by the Koreans and Korean high courts and the politicians is really putting this thing into an unsolvable problem. And I really think that this is a good opportunity for both the parties to really open up, so that they can cooperate in trying to get an act together, not only for these two countries, but for the region as a whole.
And what really are the main sticking points and even origins of these trade tensions, and what concrete steps could be taken during these talks to alleviate them?
Actually, it all started last October when the Korean High Court ruled that the payment to wartime laborers during Japanese occupation, um, they ordered the payment, and also they made some asset seizures of the Japanese companies in Korea. Now, this is a clear violation of international law. And at the same time, you had these Korean Navy making a radar irradiation, which is the wartime act against Japanese reconnaissance planes. You had high politicians asking for apology to the emperor. And therefore, what Japan did was drop Korea from what we call the white country preferred trade partner to a normal partner. We didn't really put sanctions or anything. We just put them back to the normal partner. But now the Koreans are now complaining that they have been downgraded. But in my opinion, what options do you have? When you are being attacked and basically your asset being seized, et cetera, et cetera. I really think this is a time when we should try to unwind these unreasonable acts and one by one, and basically try to avoid these emotional factors from kicking in and looking at more of the rational economic benefits that these two countries can give on the region as a whole.